I'm recording this video to demonstrate how effective it is to take Zeocharge, Volvic Charge, and Vicon together. And I'm going to show you three different HTMAs that I've conducted, one in 2019, another one just recently in January of 23, and then another one recently in 5 months later, just a few weeks ago. So when I first sent in my HTMA, I wasn't feeling very good still had a lot of fatigue, brain fog, bladder issues, and really struggled with, keeping my weight off. I had just started doing my water fast, so it was just in the beginning of my healing. And as you can see, I had a calcium imbalance. I have a calcium shell almost at 149, which is my unavailable calcium, and my magnesium was also moving in that direction. Sodium was a little higher. That's often due to inflammation and stress. I had a bit of a potassium deficiency, and then there was copper toxicity demonstrated by my elevated copper and zinc levels. I also had some need for selenium and chromium, and obviously some heavy metals. And going down here, the ratios were really important. So my calcium magnesium ratio was indicating there's definitely some blood sugar issues as far as more of a low blood sugar, hypoglycemia, which I did suffer from. Calcium potassium ratio definitely was demonstrating more of a sluggish thyroid. Sodium magnesium seems to be holding pretty good there, but sodium potassium was demonstrating a little bit more of inflammatory ratio, more inflammation when it starts to go above 2.5. Zinc, copper, there was some copper toxicity, and then calcium phosphorus ratio was putting me at a pretty significant slow oxidation rate. So I definitely was struggling. So then I did some mineral balancing, but not a whole lot. I was introduced to Vicon about a year or so later and started taking that, but not regularly. So then I ran I was doing a little bit of Zeo Boost, but not the Zeo Charge. And so I ran it again. And as you can see, my calcium levels went down a little bit, but not too much. Even despite the vitamin K2 I was taking, I thought that would help. Still wasn't taking a lot of boron. Boron was not measured on this test. Unfortunately, it's not available. So that's why I switched to trace elements. But anyway, so magnesium improved, was basically coming down a bit from the biounavailability. Sodium went up a little bit, but that's not a bad thing. It's more of a resilient pattern. Potassium came out of the deficiency, so I was doing better with potassium. Copper the toxicity was coming away, so I was becoming more balanced with copper. And then I still had chromium issues, selenium. Phosphorus had improved, which is also important for ATP because phosphate is part of ATP. Some mercury was still present, but less. You see how high it was. I had also amalgams taken out several years prior to this. And then here my mercury is coming down, but cadmium starts coming up, and apparently minerals your body prioritizes which minerals it wants to excrete. So this is maybe more of a prioritization pattern. Looking at my ratios, my calcium magnesium ratio had improved, coming down a bit. Thyroid ratio had improved. Remember, it was at 18, so it was getting better. I was also taking a little bit of iodine at the time. So that's improving. And so I was taking thyroid medication. Sodium magnesium ratio jumped up a little bit. It just meant that my oxidation rate might have been speeding up a bit, even though you can see here, I was a mixed oxidizer, so I was speeding up my oxidation rate. Not a bad thing. Sodium potassium ratio also a little bit high, but if you notice, it was higher here, so it was improving. So less inflammation. Zinc, copper. So it seems like it might have been switching, but I don't think I had a deficiency yet. I think perhaps it was just balancing out. And then calcium phosphorus ratio started coming down, showing that my oxidation rate was improving. And then just recently, after doing several months of a very high dose of Zeocharge and Fulvic Charge, as well as my Vicon, which Vicon I added a more boron. I added 15 milligrams of boron to it, which is really important for hormone, but also for calcium. You can see my calcium is finally where it needs to be at 66. So it's doing really good here. Magnesium looks really good. Sodium went down, so less inflammation. And potassium 16, 13. So I'm holding strong with the potassium. So these were really good. Now there may be some copper deficiency being provoked because now I am a slow 4, which is very similar to a fast 1, slow 4. Well, slow 4, one second. So slow 4 and a fast 1 are very similar. Overactive adrenals, overactive thyroid. Although I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. As you can see on the scale, there really isn't anything that's considered normal. So if you were to pick one, I would think that it's probably better to have something a little faster than slower. So I'm actually pleased because I feel really good and I have really good energy and I feel the best I ever have. So I think being a slow 4 to me is not necessarily a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. Boron's holding really strong here. That's probably what's helping bringing my calcium down. Selenium looks good. It's gone up. Chromium looks really good. That's going to help me with my blood sugar. It's moved up. Remember, it was low before. So it's definitely gone up. Well, it's 0.04, so I don't think it went up that much. 0.04. Okay, so maybe chromium hasn't gone up that much. The scale might have changed a little bit because it's a different test. Let's see what else. Sulfur is not so bad. I could definitely use more sulfur though, so I have to work on that. And then my ratios, as you can see, my calcium magnesium ratio here, 15. So still kind of on the higher side, but judging by how I feel, I'm doing okay. I definitely could make improvements on the ratio. Zinc and copper, I'm wondering if this might be pushing into deficiency with the fast oxidation. Have to look into that. Calcium potassium ratio looks great, right where it needs to be. So thyroid is functioning well. Sodium potassium ratio is perfect, right where it needs to be. So adrenals are functioning well. And then sodium magnesium 8.14. Sodium magnesium, okay, it's a little on the higher side. That means my adrenals are a little faster, and I would have expected that because I kind of do feel that way sometimes. Although I sleep great at night, but I do find that I'm actually able to have a lot more resilience. I'm able to tolerate more stress. Let's take on more tasks. So this is a good sign. But the whole point here is that you can see how much I've made improvements in some of these top 4 minerals, especially the calcium, because it started off as a shell. And I do believe that this was a big contributor to why my body wasn't doing well with oxalates, because calcium is necessary to be available, not only for your nerves and for your just overall different functionalities in the body, with the cell, actual cell function, but also I believe that availability of calcium helps with binding up oxalates. The other thing I want to show is I do a copper toxicity checklist and to see if there's a potential for hidden copper toxicities. You can see there's a lot of no's here. So I don't think it's a toxicity any longer, but very unlikely it is. One of the biggest drivers of that are birth control. And I haven't had that in years. So I do think that maybe having a lot of zinc, because I had zinc in my Vicon, might have been lowering my copper. So I'm just going to remove the zinc. And I don't even think I need to take copper. I think it'll just normalize itself. And here's the iodine deficiency checklist. Doesn't look like it based on the number of no's, but I am going to do the 24-hour Hakala test anyway. I have it sitting here. I'm planning on doing it sometime next week, so it'll be interesting to see where my iodine is. But according to the checklist, it looks okay. So interesting to see if actual zeal charge and fulvic charge may have normalized my iodine without actually me taking iodine. Now, I did take it before. I'm not sure how I felt on it, though. I don't know if it was making me feel worse or my thyroid, my TSH was climbing up. So I backed off a little bit on it. And I'm going to do the test. And depending on the results of that, whether or not I continue taking iodine will be a matter of what the results say. But the checklist looks pretty good. So these are other ways that I assess to see what other things could be going on with mineral imbalances, which are really the key to vitality. And so those are my results. Like again, I'm really pleased. Last thing I want to mention is the cadmium coming up is not necessarily a bad thing. As you can see, mercury continues to go down. So even though I do eat fish with mercury, so this is 0.2 here, here I'm 0.06, and now I'm down to 0.06. Still keeping it on the lower side. Maybe it's coming from diet, but I remember I had amalgams for decades and I took them out, 7 years ago. So I could still be detoxing from that. But the cadmium is coming up. Last time it was at 0.03. That's actually a good sign that my body is starting to mobilize. So I'm sure that over the next few years, I should see a lot of these come back down. And that's the end. So the methodology works and I feel great. And here's proof. Bye.